Well, the last debate is coming up. We talk from one Liberal Democrat to another because Callum Robertson joins me. He's a young teacher. He used to be a Lib Dem candidate. And then we also have Chris McGovern, chairman of the Campaign for Real Education, a retired head teacher and the former advisor to the policy unit at number 10 Downing Street. So we've got a millennial, can I say that, Callum?
Just about.
Just about. Somebody slightly older, Chris, I'll put it that way. Now, I mean, the strikes have been a massive topic this week. I ended up, would you believe it, helping out my son's school because they're a bit short-staffed, and I went and did a lesson with Year 11s on persuasive writing, which was interesting. There were about 70 kids in the classroom. I must say I'd rather do 90 minutes of live telly than teach a classroom full of 16-year-olds, but there you have it. On strikes, I suppose from a parental point of view, and lots of people think this, Callum, I'll bring you in first. Look, the children weren't in for huge swathes of the pandemic era. Teachers are largely working from home. Often they've been given a pay rise. Indeed, at my own school, I think they were given 8%. And the government has just come out with £2 billion worth more funding for the DfE. Therefore, is the timing of all this right?
I think it's a very fair set of questions. We need to look at this not just in the context of the cost of living crisis and the 8.3%, which is for new teachers, not long-standing teachers, which is where the cut-off is actually really happening. This is about correcting a historic injustice with teaching. Teachers since 2010 have had £6,600 a year cut from their salaries in real terms. That isn't an opinion, it's not party political, it's Institute of Fiscal Studies. That's just maths, that's just counting. If you leave a profession of skilled people that much worse off and expect teachers to stay in the profession when they can get better paid jobs elsewhere, then we're kidding ourselves about the state of education.
Chris, I mean, are teachers historically underpaid and do they deserve more? Most people would say yes, wouldn't they?
Well, look, I've taught for 35 years and actually was a trade unionist myself. And I have some sympathy for teachers, but I have a lot more sympathy for children who have missed out hugely because of lockdown. And what we have to remember, and it's never mentioned in this debate, is actually the majority of staff in schools, according to the government's own statistics, are not teachers, they are support staff. There's plenty of money in the education system to pay the best teachers, good teachers, a good salary, but it means we have to change the way we teach. So we have fewer classroom assistants, not none, we have some, but we have fewer, and we have more what we call teacher-led teaching, so where the teacher at the front of the class, the children face in the front. Go to any primary school in the country these days, you'll find the children sitting around tables, half with their backs to the teacher, supported by classroom assistants. Do away with that and you save a lot of money, and you should then pay the good teachers because they deserve it. So there's money in the system, and going on strike is never acceptable.
Are you talking about performance-related pay there, Chris?
I think we should definitely have performance-related pay. Good teachers should be paid more.
Callum?
I completely agree on performance-related pay. I also want to correct you slightly when it comes to the statistics around support staff. That is only true in primary schools. When it comes to secondary education, approximately 56%, so over half, are teachers or senior leaders within schools. So it's really important you've got to look at these statistics in their context. When you look at them in their context, actually, where the savings can really be made is things like capping energy prices. So, for example, some schools are facing £500,000 extra on their energy bills this year. Now, when we talk about the $2 billion extra for education, that's fantastic. That covers the energy bill. What about the unfunded pay rise? What about the fact schools are being asked to fund a 5% pay rise on a 2% uplift? That's just bad maths.
Look, the majority of teachers agree with me. They have not voted for strike action. And we have to remember, this is a highly political debate. We've seen in the papers in the last day or two a teacher in London putting on social media a poster which one of the children in the class actually put together, saying the only good Tory is a dead Tory, the only good Lib Dem is a dead Lib Dem. We've seen this before at Labour Party conferences. We've had teacher representatives saying as long as a single pupil leaves school and votes Tory, the education system is failing. So it's a political debate. We can argue over the statistic, but the truth is we are overstaffed in our schools and we're not doing particularly well. There is money in the system.
Callum, I mean, are teachers being led astray by sort of socialist rhetoric? It's all part of some general strike to try and realign the political order?
I can totally see where people get that idea from. When we look at that article, we know that's disgusting. No one is going to sit there defending political threats, especially after the death of 2 MPs in the last 10 years. Like, we cannot stress enough, violence and violent rhetoric is definitely not the idea. And also, actually, on the teacher demonstration of 40,000 people in London on Wednesday, There were people with Palestine posters.
I know, but there wasn't
socialist worker posters.
A lot of teachers aren't in favour of this, and that's a problem, isn't it?
Hang on. So, when you have those sort of people trying to hijack, actually, a debate which I think is about pay. Mine's about pay, and actually, more importantly, I think it's about workload. I think we need to focus on those issues rather than getting distracted with rhetoric in schools or stuff like that. We will always agree on the fact that we should not be using political violence, but we have to focus on the fact teachers are underpaid and overworked in this country.
Workload? I mean, are teachers of Callum's generation more overworked than your generation now?
Good teachers work very hard, and I would support the right of teachers to negotiate a higher pay rise. But there are very many great teachers, and there are a large number of poor teachers. All the children know who the good teachers are, all the parents know who the good teachers are, and all the staff know. We need to reward those who are best. So there is a case for teachers having a pay rise, a very strong case, but not for going on strike. Why should children, particularly children from poor backgrounds, suffer? And you know, we work with poor children, and what we find is their parents often cannot read and write. They can't help their children. So they are the ones who are suffering. Do not use the pupils, the children, as a pawn.
Chris makes a good point with regard to teachers perhaps prioritising their own needs above those of children. We had this criticism made of teachers, rightly or wrongly, during the pandemic, not having face-to-face learning, wanting to carry on. It's the same with lecturers in universities, still sticking to online learning, even though we're well beyond the vaccination. What's your reaction to that? Are teachers being selfish?
I think when you've got a government that openly refuses to negotiate in good faith, and that's not just rhetoric. Last week and the week before, meetings were cancelled between the union officials and the Education Secretary at the last minute.
But teachers specifically, Callum, let's just address this issue, because Chris is making this point that actually the children should always come first when it comes to the classroom.
When a government is refusing to negotiate in good faith, we have laws in this country that allow for trade union and industrial action. Are we seriously considering scrapping the laws because the government don't like the outcome? Are we really in that position as a society where we are going to scrap our very basic workers and human rights because we don't like one particular bit of strike
yes
action?
Or no answer to finish, Chris. Should teachers be allowed to strike in future?
They should be allowed to, but they should not harm children. Therefore, they should not go on strike readily. Most teachers will not go on strike.
Thank you very much for that, both of you. We've run out of time.